Hello YouTube, Dave here again. In this week's video I'm going to do something a little bit different. A few months back I did a video where I talked about how I discovered D&D in the first place, like my first kind of experience with it, and discovering the game. And for people who know me, and obviously anybody who watches this channel knows that I absolutely love Dungeons and Dragons. One of the questions that I've been asked quite a bit by people who don't really understand the game is, why I'm enjoying as much as I do. And I've kind of given answers, but I've never really given the full answer. And it actually goes a lot deeper than just, it's a really fun game that, I have fun playing with my friends. So I'm going to do something that, it's kind of going to be a personal story, which not very many people actually know. I've never really talked about this to a lot of even my closest friends. I think only a couple people know parts of this story. Including my fiance, who probably knows more than just about anybody else. But the reason that I love D&D as much as I do, and the reason it means as much to me as it does, is something that I'm definitely going to get into. And basically, it's just kind of my story with dealing with depression. Basically, it's kind of a heavy topic, but and I'm going to try to get to the D&D part of it as quickly as possible. But a little bit of backstory is probably necessary. When I was going into junior high for the first time, 13 years old, it was a rough transition for me. And it's a rough transition for a lot of people, I understand. But for me in particular, we weren't from a financially well-off family. We weren't, ever hurting. We always had food in the fridge. We never went hungry. And, when Christmas came, we always had what, we had asked for. So, and there's definitely nothing wrong there. But compared to other people, we just, weren't as financially well off as them. Puberty also hit me incredibly hard with acne and, things like facial hair starting to come in at a very, very early age compared to everybody else that I went to school with. It was during this time that a lot of people started to, pick on me and kind of make fun of me for looking different and not having the money and stuff like that. And it became a situation where some of my closest friends ended up being friends with the people who were, not physically, but for, verbally and emotionally tormenting me. And I became very withdrawn, very antisocial during this time. When high school came, that's when I discovered Dungeons & Dragons, and I started playing the game with people who were actually older than me, so a lot of the high school drama stuff just wasn't there, and it was refreshing. Once high school ended, however, I found myself in a situation where, I think a lot of people do. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I got stuck in a job and a couple of really bad, unhealthy relationships that, a lot of people would just say, well, why didn't you just get out of those relationships? And I'm the kind of person who tends to put my own personal well-being aside for somebody else. So the second relationship that I was in, which lasted about 5 years off and on, was one, where the woman I was with would constantly say things like, if you weren't around, I think I, wouldn't be able to live, and I would probably end up killing myself. And this happened a lot. This line came up quite a few times, and I was the kind of person who, if that were the case, I wouldn't have been able to have lived with it on my conscience, right? It was something that would have haunted me if it turned out that she would actually have committed suicide. Now, as things finally went on, I finally got to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. But during this period, which was about 7, 8 years long, I struggled with depression quite a bit. There were weeks where I wouldn't be able to eat. I would have maybe a couple pieces of toast every 2 or 3 days. And there were times where, and not really easy to talk about, but there were times where I did struggle with suicidal thoughts. There were days where I thought the only way to really get out of the situation I was in was, the ultimate permanent solution. I thought about just letting myself starve to death. I thought about throwing myself in front of an oncoming traffic. It wasn't good. It was a very bad period of my life, and I tried not to let people know what I was going through, but when I was home by myself, I was having a really hard time. The one thing that really kept me going during this period of time was the fact that, the weekend was coming, and that's when we got together to play D&D. And sitting around the gaming table with friends was like the only time during the entire week that I felt happy, that I felt, normal, that I had an appetite, that, I had this desire to keep going. And as, the game session ended and the week progressed, it started to get, more and more back to that dark place. And this went on for years. And I was a lot closer to ending it than I think a lot of people realized. And it was difficult, but I did have the one thing. I had, my friends and D&D to really kind of solidify me, keep me going. On weeks where I couldn't eat, getting together on the weekend for D&D was, a time to either grab some subs on the way there, eat with the guys, or in later years we would get together at the local pub for, for a nice meal and a few drinks. So I can honestly say without any hesitation that if it weren't for Dungeons and Dragons, I would probably not be here today. And that's not a good thing. That's definitely not a healthy thing. And, looking back, it would have been so simple to say, well, you're better off without this kind of, nonsense, and just walked away from it. But my personality just wouldn't have let me do it, because I always wanted to help people, and I felt that other people's needs were more important than my own. Things are a lot better now. I'm with my fiance, the love of my life. And once we started seeing each other, things, turned around quite a bit. So I'm definitely in a much better place. And, I haven't had to worry about any, real depression issues since we started really seeing each other. But it's something that at the time was a very real thing and a very serious threat to my existence, basically. And the reason I love D&D is because it literally saved my life. So, when people try to make me feel bad because I play games at 31 years old, they don't understand obviously the situation. Even my fiance didn't really understand how much it really meant to me until just a few days ago. Actually, we kind of sat down and had this conversation. And I think that's when she realized that, it is something that's really important to him. So even if she doesn't like it, even if it's not something that she's into, hopefully she has a better understanding of why it's so important to me. And, the reason I wanted to make this video, not just because, it's kind of an explanation for why D&D is important to me as it is, but it's because I know that I'm probably not the only person in a situation like that. I know that depression is a very serious thing, and a lot of people suffer from it. And a lot of people in the past who had committed suicide, it was attributed to them playing D&D, when it turns out that, well, that was the one thing that was kind of keeping them going, and they hadn't been playing for months when they finally did end up committing suicide. And there were other things obviously going on at the time. But I wanted to talk about this because I think it's an important topic. If anybody out there is going through anything even remotely similar, I just want to let you know that you really should, seek help and talk to somebody. It doesn't have to necessarily be, a professional, although they're professionals for a reason and they are there to help. But, maybe talk to your closest friend. Maybe talk to some of the people in your gaming group if, you can trust them with stuff along those lines. But, just the important thing is don't suffer through it like I did. I don't recommend that to anybody. I definitely, looking back, I probably should have, and if I was brave enough at the time, I would have sought help, because it takes more courage to say I need help, and this is what I'm going through, than to do nothing and keep it all to yourself. I think that, it's a very serious issue, but, something like D&D can have very positive effects. It's a social game. It's something that you have to get together with friends. You have to do this socially in order to enjoy the hobby. And for that, it's really what kept me going, and it's what kept me from just completely losing it and doing something that, well, I wouldn't obviously have lived to regret, but something that, would definitely have been the wrong solution to the problems. So, for anybody watching this, for everybody watching this, I hope that this gives you a little bit of insight as to why I love D&D as much as I do. And for anybody that's going through something like this, please talk to somebody. It could be the difference between life or death. And I thought that this was a very important video to record, a very important one to get out there. Especially with all the stuff that's been going on lately. I know the things with, Robin Williams committing suicide, for example, was a huge subject of, people talking about stuff like this. And I wish I would have made this video a little bit sooner, but, it took me a while to kind of build up the courage to talk about it. Because this is something where it's going to be seen by, well, at least a few people that I definitely don't know. But in a lot of ways, it was easier to do this, to talk about it this way, rather than being face to face. So, it's a way of at least dealing with it, getting that situation out there, and feeling good that, that's not a part of my life anymore. That's something I've definitely moved on from. But there are those of you out there who may not have yet. So I'm hoping that this video will at least help, even if it helps one person, and one person only, then it's been incredibly successful. So anyway, I guess that's it. That's my story on why D&D is important to me, why it means as much as it does to me, and why it's something that I will be playing until the day that I die. And when that happens, it's going to be because I'm old, or I got sick, or something that was beyond my control, not because I just couldn't take it anymore. Anyway, I'm going to end this here before it gets a little too rambly. I hope that this video helped at least somebody out there, and I hope for those of you watching, you have a deeper appreciation for, just how much of an impact D&D can really have on somebody's life, and that just in general you enjoy the video. So thank you very much for watching this. It meant a lot to me to get it out there, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, YouTube.